Here we go. Well, we are live. Welcome everyone to the 10th. Can you believe it's
Ooh,
been 10? I know. I'm proud that we've actually been able
wow.
to make it this far. The
Double
10th
digits.
episode of Butterfly Bytes. I feel like it's been forever since Michelle and I talked. I did a little vacation for my birthday. I missed a week or so, but we are back and she's got a
Happy
super
birthday.
exciting topic to talk about. So, Michelle, how have you been?
I have been well. Happy summer. Happy birthday.
Yes. Oh,
What's your
man.
what's your sign?
Cancer Leo.
I
I'm a
love it.
cusper. My
I
husband's a
love it.
cusper too. Yeah.
Nice. Nice. I have a lot of Leos. You're like my first Cancer. I'm always searching for a Cancer. I'm a Capricorn.
Yeah. I'm definitely the nurturer, like home. I like to make my home very comfortable, but I also have the Leo tendencies of like dun dun dun, dun like like come and perform. Like I have both of those things
Who
when I'm
you?
not being shy. Yeah. Who would have thought?
I love it.
Oh,
I love it.
yeah.
Well, I am that true Capricorn that I'm just going to keep trying to climb that mountain like a goat,
That's awesome.
And so it's summer. I'm enjoying some time off. Saw the Rolling Stones. Did Monterey and Carmel
What? My
with
gosh.
my partner's son, his son, and his son's girlfriend, and been hanging out with his daughter who just turned 16, I was telling you. And so it's been a nice summer. I've enjoyed trying to take a little bit of downtime, but everything is moving so darn fast with AI, right? It's still not slowing down, even if people are questioning, is there value yet? My heartbeat is still focused on AI. So how about you? What have you been up to? How's
I
AI still
I
around?
also have been seeing and also feeling this sort of like actually, I think I did a few month ago or so, I posted something was like, "Is this the anti-hype?" Not
Right.
about AI in general, but about generative AI because just there's just so many things I was like, this isn't the magic wand, the perfect everything." But what I like about people questioning the value is there is immense value in artificial intelligence and machine
Yes.
learning in general and really being able to interpret things using data, and we have the compute power now to be able to do things we couldn't do before. So I feel like truth will come to the top, to the surface, and people will be able a couple things. People will be able to get value and not like rush things, because that's what I was seeing is people rushing into use cases and then falling flat on their faces and being embarrassed. I was also seeing people that don't really understand the fundamentals of even math and statistics trying to sell themselves as AI influencers and experts, and people are like, can you really take yourself seriously saying, you know, this prompt library is going to solve everything, is going to make you a millionaire? So
Yeah,
I feel
right.
like we needed some reality checking, but clearly, you and I are having a podcast about AI, so clearly it's something that we still think is worth doing. So you had mentioned wanting to talk about AI agents, so I would love for you to talk about this video that you saw. I saw it on
Yeah.
LinkedIn. I'd love to hear what you think about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I want to preface that real quick with, one way on the path to value for AI is getting it into people's hands. And I think that's why it was so groundbreaking when Chat GPT came out, because it was, sort of democratizing this research that had been done now in ways that people could see, that there was functionality that they could use. And that's only going to, expand more and more, especially as our companies, sort of at the enterprise level, start bringing out chatbots and AI agents. I wanted to talk
Yeah.
about sort of rise to the surface. And I read this really great article from Reid Hoffman on LinkedIn, of course. And he and his peer, Alex, I forget her name, we'll have to look it
Allie
up.
Miller.
Allie. Yes, they're a great duo. They decided to do an AI team conversation. And so they brought in AI agents from different points of view to facilitate a collaboration session and conversation together to see, would better answers arrive? Would it
Would
add
it
more
break down?
value to the conversation?
Yeah. And would it
Yeah,
break down, right? Because
exactly.
systems to systems, is it really gonna work? So there was like a video that you shared with me, right? And there was maybe 4 or 5 different agents and they were all talking to each other. It's kinda like that video, back in the day, I don't remember how long ago, it was like Siri and Alexa were like talking to each other or something.
Right. Yeah, so they had the scribe who summarized the conversation with relevant quotes, the skeptic, of course, questioned assumptions with critical analysis, the accelerator pushed for rapid change and innovation. They also had the historian who brought in context from across history, and then they also had these like mystery boxes of other sort of personalities. One was a Frankenstein, so coming from the point of view of a Frankenstein, and then then there was another mystery box. I won't spoil them all.
Like a real, like, Frankenstein's monster, like, from
Yeah.
Mary Shelley, or like, oh my god,
Yes,
he's
yes.
he
So it sort of
he's
ended
my
up
favorite
speaking like
monster. I don't
Frankenstein.
know. I know we never talked about horror, but he is my favorite monster.
Oh, I love Frankenstein. Yes,
He's
absolutely.
reanimated from
Yes.
parts. I love
Well, I
that
should
about
add
him.
that Reed also put his own AI agent in there, which he has trained with, I think, like 20 years of his content.
Yeah, books and stuff. Yeah, I saw an
Yeah,
interview where he
so
interviewed himself and stuff. That was kind of
yes,
interesting.
and of course, it uses his voice. He also has an AI avatar, which is an offshoot conversation we can have, but he says the exercise, beyond having some entertainment value, felt useful in the way it helped us imagine the future of thoughtful collaboration and experience what's already possible today. It added to his view that our future will involve teams of custom AI agents, each bringing unique tools and perspectives to the table, enriching our work.
Yeah.
Interesting. When
So,
can I have my own AI agent? And when will I feel safe and secure enough that I can give 20 years of data to this agent is one question I have. And
so
what
yeah,
about you? You,
that
from the technical level, tell me a little bit about what an AI agent is. Of course, I pulled a definition here. To me, an AI agent would have done this, for example, before we were getting here. I'm like, I know Damie is going to ask me to provide the definition of AI
definition,
agent.
I
So
mean,
I wish I could have said, hey, Siri, can you tell me the definition of AI agent, which right now
right.
I can try and do. But then I wanted to say, and then throw that up on my second monitor. That's it's the task that I want beyond even the device, right? So anyway, tell
So
us.
yeah, so I have so many thoughts, but to answer your direct question, I think I've seen people asking, what's the difference between an agent, an assistant, a co-pilot? Are they the same? Are they different? And where I see value is, I think what you just mentioned is not just conversational. So like when they were comparing, when there was the whole thing with Scarlett Johansson's voice and the voice bot or whatever that OpenAI had came out with, and they were comparing it to the movie Her. In that movie, the person has a conversational assistant that's really a companion, a friend.
Sure.
But I haven't seen the movie admittedly, but I think the premise is like people get lonely and they want somebody to talk to. It's more of just having somebody that's like a friend. But what you're mentioning is something that can do tasks. So that is what I have seen as being actual real value. In a similar use case that I've seen is something like, hey, I'm a SaaS company. When somebody fills out my form asking for a demo, automatically schedule something with them through the Google Calendar or whatever as a task. So an automated task more so than an assistant. And then the co-pilot, I kind of understand as being like, some like if you think about coding, a co-pilot for coding, a senior developer right behind you at your shoulder saying, "Oh, hey, you could have done it this way. Oh, this is how you do that. This is that expression you need." Just sort of helping you and kind of guiding you along the way. The challenge now, I will admit I'm a late adopter. I'm one of those people that like, yes, I like to try things, but I really don't like change. So it takes me a lot before I'm going to change my pattern.
Everyone. Yeah.
Even though I like AI and I've built my own AI agents, I've had 50 or so custom GPTs that I've built. I've actually looked at coding or orchestration tools to kind of figure out how I would do this kind of thing. If I ask myself, just like you just said, what would I really give to an assistant in a trustful way to do for me, like autonomously? I don't really have anything I can think of.
Hmm.
I like what was something, I need a Python function for something and I don't want to have to just look it up. Yes, that's kind of the Copilot example. Or, my husband, he's never gonna listen to this, so it doesn't matter if I talk about him. Um, he's a procrastinator and he forgets things. So something that reminded him like, "Hey, you need to do this. This
I
is due
need
on
this.
this day. You need to do these things in order to get this next thing done." Like those sorts of helpful reminders so I don't have to nag him.
Right.
Um, but those are the only things that I can think of, and I think it's a
I loved your
combination.
earlier example about with the kids, and
Oh,
it
well, you know what though? Like I said
that
when
one
we were
different.
talking, is that it feels too much like social credit scores. So, okay, so the
Oh,
story I gave was, you know, my kids are making noise, they're getting too loud. Instead of having to constantly tell them, clean your room, be quiet, stop, don't hurt your sister like that, a robot that measures behavior and measures noise and does it automatically for me, and then also potentially like says, "Oh, well, you lost video games this day because you hurt somebody or you did something you weren't supposed to do." But that feels like what a social credit score is like. If you did not
mm.
behave properly, you lost
Ooh, I
your
don't like that.
privilege, and I'm very against that.
I
So, I
agree.
don't think it's right
It's
to
true.
monitor or penalize people, but I just there's I don't trust the system's
Sure,
accuracy yet.
sure.
And I also feel like sometimes if I'm trying to do something complicated with an AI, I end up taking longer refining the prompt or refining the output than it would actually have been to do it myself. So those are the reasons. I did just think of one. If we could reliably come up with somebody that an agent that would do your laundry effectively, I would happily give that up.
Oh, yes, me too.
And I
Although
can
I
think of
do
an
use
algorithm
laundry
of how you
sometimes
would
as
do it.
meditation.
I can think of how you would do it, but I just don't know how it would, like, physically work. But I can
Right.
"Oh, these are the steps. This is how you would do it." I saw a robot video actually of, like, somebody trying to, like, fold the clothes, and they're just terrible. I was like, "Wow." Not that they couldn't figure that out, but I
Right,
guess my problem with the agents is I just don't know. I mean, you had said Reid Hoffman mentioned there's entertainment value if it's just amusing, but, maybe
sure.
it does find some insights that weren't there before. So much of this stuff just feels like novelty at this point, um, but it's very applicable to many use cases, so maybe it's just a matter of we have to just try things out until we can find what would really be the most valuable.
Well, and the one thing that it doesn't get into and that I'd love to understand a little better is what did they use to train, the skeptic? How do you tune or any of them? I'm just using the skeptic as an example, right? Like, do we all agree what a skeptic does? I mean, do we need to be at a level where we agree, or maybe then there are skeptics that you can raise a level of this area, be more this to be the skeptic, or be less that, maybe more global, less, something, I don't know. But then you start to think about, okay, so you have the personalities. Well, what about my personality, right? Like, I want my personality in my agent. So there is this company called wordware.ai, which I saw on Jeremiah Oyang's Llama Lounge Slack channel. He's doing all these amazing AI events. He just did one in San Francisco at the AWS office. And Wordware, this company, what they do is they take your Twitter profile and they create a Twitter personality that analyzes all your tweets to reveal unique traits that make you you, it says. So, you get to discover insights about your online persona. It's like, basically seeing how you're being perceived on the back end from all your demographic data. In this case,
Hmm.
it's, just to Twitter. Of course, I tried to get it so I could have it on here for this, but I think too many people are hitting their server right now because they're having to wait. But it just made me think, because then um, I certainly do a lot about music. I'm really into, poetry, right? I heard another thing where someone said, well, I want, my personal agent to let me bring forth the person who does poetry as that. And then I was like, oh my gosh, yes, why not automate that? And then I thought, but wait, the fact that I can write poetry, right? Not everybody can, I think everybody can write poetry, but some, you might find yourself more talented as a poet than others. And I'm not afraid to say that I do score high in that area. I think you're a poet as well, which
I
is
was
lovely.
gonna say, I didn't know we had that in common. You'll have to send me one of your, like, favorite poems that you've written.
Definitely. Likewise. But you know, so then I'm like, it gets into that question of creativity and
Right.
yeah, I don't know. There's so many thoughts around all of this. So I'll pause because I've said a lot.
No,
Would you
so
want certain facets
I
of
don't
your
have a Twitter.
personality?
I've never had a Twitter. I've tried, I'm just not into it. The only social
Okay.
media that I'm on is LinkedIn, and I filter significantly what I post and what I post about, and, like, even when I was on Facebook, it was always like, what is the image, not to overthink it, but, like, what's the image I wanna put out there? I never just freeform just, like, vomit posts. I know lots of people do, like, they just whatever they're feeling, whatever they're thinking, just blah, and I just don't. So, if you could, so that wouldn't work for me because there's no data, and then it's filtered, so it's not a true representation of your personality, but as your personal brand, it would be good to be able to have something that says, like, "Hey, you know, this is how you're perceived," and on LinkedIn even, and
Yeah,
then this is how, if you were trying to get this result, this is how you might wanna shape it. I could see how there'd be value in that.
sure.
Um, yeah, there's so many different things I've seen. I think there's like a what's that show? It's like a software development show. I can't remember. I only saw it every once in a while. Like I watched it on the airplane. I don't remember. It was Silicon Valley, something
Yes.
anyway, about startups. So there was like the one guy is talking to the other guy, and they're like talking about lunch, and then he sees that the person he's IMing is like right there, and he's like, did you make a bot for yourself?" And so
Yes.
he made a bot to like just have, simple conversations with people and
Yes.
respond or whatever. I don't know.
Yes.
I don't know if I like it. I think it's weird.
Yes. Yeah. It's
Especially when they say, like, authenticity is gonna be your superpower, or, you had asked that question of, like, how do you train it? I can give you simple terms of how those things are trained. There's really
yes,
2 pieces. One is training data, so what's the content
of
or the
course.
corpus of data that it's gonna be looking at? And that might be, as you said, Reid Hoffman's books, or your Twitter feed, or, writing samples that you have, or poems that you had written or whatever. So that's the training data, and then the instructions would really be, act as a skeptic, and then you define what a skeptic means, or use this book as reference, or whatever. So there's instructions on the role you're supposed to play, and then there's the training data behind it. So that's how those basic things are written.
Right.
But lots of people are saying data is the differentiator in these types of
Sure.
things. So not just the prompt or the instructions makes you a differentiator, but also the data behind it.
Definitely.
So just how you and I are going to think of skeptics is different. Other people are going to be defining things differently. So that really is a special differentiator. And there are people that are selling prompt libraries and selling prompt
Right.
strategies. And I think there is something there, but I feel like that's going to get slowly baked into the solutions, where it's going to become less and less more reliant on the engineer and more so relying on the LLM. And I think the problem is hallucinations are the problem. Number
Sure.
1, they're the problem.
Yeah.
And we'll have to see. I know there's graph solutions and there's vector solutions, and there's different ways that people are trying to improve the hallucinations and even measuring hallucinations, but I just don't know when it'll get to where it's like good enough. Um,
Sure. And maybe it's not supposed to, right? Like maybe what we're seeing is that it's reliable for whatever results it can get being the reliability is that it will be unreliable. And so we start to build around that, right?
Yeah,
Um,
but the pushback for people that are even the AI people deep in the AI circle that are coming and saying like, "Wait, wait, wait." They're saying the danger is how believable and persuasive these systems can be, and
sure.
how easy they can influence you with false information, and that is very dangerous because you've got these rogue things with no conscience telling people lies and telling them to harm themselves, and that's a problem. And so to one of your questions you had at the beginning of this conversation, about all these agents coming together and how do I think about it. Of watching this guy on LinkedIn that I follow, and I think his name is like Mike Dillinger. He's a knowledge graph expert, and he's saying that there's a difference between being able to say words and having knowledge,
Sure.
and knowledge is different. And if I say artificial intelligence, I want to imply that it actually has knowledge, not just that it can string words together that sound reasonable.
Right.
And I don't think that we've gotten, like, this idea of we're gonna have sentience and, you know, general intelligence by the next 5 years, like, I don't know. Can it pass a test? Yes, that's easy. Does it actually have knowledge that it can apply in a meaningful way? I don't know if we're there yet. Not
I
commercially, at least.
right? So I was trying to find, I looked up on AWS how they are defining AI agents. They have a whole, page um, on this. An AI agent is a software program that can interact with its environment, which is,
Mhm.
I think, where people start to call it sentient. Collect data, obviously, and use the data to perform self determined tasks to meet predetermined goals. Humans set goals,
Interesting.
but an AI agent independently chooses the best actions it needs to perform to achieve those goals. So, but there, yeah. And so there was somewhere where they actually put the definition as that it senses its environment. And I thought, interesting to say senses. I mean, by definition, sure, but it does tend to give it that notion that it's got knowledge, right, or intelligence, when really it's based on the data, right? We cannot verify for sure it's truth.
What do you think about, like, these little, I don't know if you've seen them, but they're, like, supposedly little nanny robots. So it's like a little cute roller teddy bear or whatever that rolls around that, like, watches your kid and entertains your child, or, elderly that are lonely and they need, like, I saw this thing where they did, like, chicken therapy where they're elderly people are so lonely that giving them chickens to tend gives them, like, a huge increase in their, like, life
Oh, wow.
quality and stuff, because it's a living thing that
Yeah.
entertains them and they're funny and, that gives them something to do. So, like, I that kinda see, maybe not for the children because you don't know if they're gonna get harmed, but that's the other thing, is they feel like a vulnerable population, to give them some sort of, like, a companion, because that feels like, I don't know, something that people need, you
Sure.
know? Especially if they're suicide prevention, there's just, like,
Yes.
having a hard time and don't wanna reach out to somebody because they don't wanna be judged. But if they had something, or I think we talked about this before, like domestic violence intervention or some sort of therapy. But it's just dangerous because of the, like, I was even thinking about, like, an agent that's like a midwife, because I'm into, like, natural childbirth. That's, like, a
Yeah.
thing that's I'm super passionate about, and all the things around, like, natural birth for women. But then as I started thinking about, "Oh, well, you could have, like, a midwife, or you could have a postpartum, assistant," like,
Yeah.
But if with the negative outcomes are pretty severe. You don't wanna lose a baby, you don't wanna lose a woman, you don't wanna lose somebody
Right.
because the system said something wrong. It's not the same thing as, like, "Oh, which hat do you wanna buy today?" It's like, it's serious outcomes.
Right.
So, scary. So, I don't know,
Well,
maybe we'll get there.
maybe we will. And I mean, there will be, I guess, where some of these robots will be sensing the environment is that they can actually start to detect the inflections in voice and make a determination based on that. I mean, we would program what that determination is, right? Or would they begin to resolve it on their own? You know, I don't
I don't
know.
know. If we look to science fiction to see, like, what did people imagine the future to be like? The robots are always there to just monitor you and harm you. They're not there to be your friend. No, that's not true. Bicentennial Man, wasn't that a movie with Robin Williams where he was like a friendly
Yes.
robot? And he was, yeah.
Mhm. Oh my
I
gosh.
get there's been it wasn't isn't he the greatest? He's so
Oh,
cool.
yes, absolutely.
I
Robin,
guess there
especially from the Bay Area, living in the Bay Area, Robin Williams is so dear to our hearts.
I guess there was a few, science fiction movies where the robot was friendly. And Terminator, like the 2nd or 3rd or whatever, the
Right.
Terminator's there to help him,
Well, of
to
course, the
keep him
Jetsons
safe.
had positive robots.
Rosie,
Oh,
she cook all the
Rose.
things. Yeah.
See.
Well, so do you have any AI assistants that you're actively using?
No, but I really would like to. I mean, I do. I like the notion of um, having it trained on my data, or honestly, being a poet. I don't know if you're like this, but I have poems everywhere, and books everywhere. In the middle of journals, a poem will come out. So I've saved them all, but I really need to kind of like tear them out and type them up. And I've wanted to do that for a while. So the thought of having something that could do that quickly for me, and maybe then make a point of view, which I could share, is very interesting. I could see, value for that. I definitely would like Siri as my agent on my phone to do more. I mean, I'm hoping eventually with spatial computing. I mean, that's the way I really would love to see this take off. But I'm not as technical as you, so I haven't dug in quite as much. Let me ask you this question: is a custom GBT a AI agent?
Yeah, pretty much.
Is it? I mean, it's the same thing,
I mean, it's an assistant in the fact that it follows instructions and it's trained on data and it can answer questions in a certain specific way. There are some plugins. I don't remember if they removed that functionality, but they have the ability to like, and then update the Excel file and then send the email or whatever to do tasks. And I think that that's the goal is there's these workflow tools like Make, N by N. What's another one? Mind Studio, Google has one where they are sort of helping people build those out in more complicated workflows flows. So like a chat bot where
Oh no, did I lose you? Oh, Damie,
if
we might. Can you hear me?
yeah, I'm back, sorry. Freeze or
Okay,
something. So, I think the short answer is yes, but I think that you need to have multiple steps, and you need to be able
right.
to go beyond just a conversation.
I think it'll be, there's, I own Creative Cloud from Adobe, so I've certainly used like Firefly, for example. Um, I think once we get into the enterprise and it gets more into people's hands, it will, proliferate. And really, I think there was another conversation that Reid Hoffman was having, saying, well, what we're also going through is the AI re-platforming of everything. So adding smart or adding the AI, the intelligence to everything. And I feel like really the agents are the user interface to that experience at the end of the day. But then will there be so many different ones it's exhaustive? I don't know. I'm interested to see how it all rolls together.
Yeah, and I think your comment about like, I'm technical, it's so true that because this is so widely applicable to multiple use cases, I tend to look at things like, oh, document processing, text extraction, code documentation, because those are the things that I'm dealing with all day, every day. Oh, write the regular expression for me because I can never figure out how to do that, even though I've been writing them for like 20 years. I still can't do them worth a crap or write a SQL query for me or like, just do things that are very mundane that I struggle
Yeah,
with. But there's so much more that can be done. And adoption, and you mentioned at the beginning, in adoption and getting in the hands of people is it's a real stage to get. So I posted this thing on LinkedIn this morning. I'm not sure if you saw it.
not
I was
yet.
at the library yesterday and I overheard these like this old lady book club behind me. I was like listening. I was like, what are they talking about?
I love
And these
it.
ladies were saying, "Oh, I like audiobooks, but like I get into a series and then I listen to the audiobook, but then the next book in the series hasn't been produced into an audiobook yet. And I get so frustrated, like, "Arr." And I was thinking, that's a good like text to voice use
Yes,
case where you could just be like, oh, there's no audiobook yet, but I can have it read it to me. But then I started thinking, well, how would you get the books, get the digital rights to the book and all that kind of stuff? And then
sure.
I thought, the women are not necessarily in a demographic that would like widely adopt that. If I turned to them and these 60 and 70-year-old ladies and said,
Right.
"Hey, I could show you a computer that can do that for you. If you just do this and then it'll talk to you." They'd look at me like, "Why are you in our book club? You're not part of our group." So, the younger generation's gonna adopt it. Like, I think I had said before in some of our calls, like, my children just love talking into their Roku. They would just
Yes,
rather not type either because they can't spell yet or because, it's just inconvenient, and so it'll happen generationally over time, but I don't know. I think it'll be fun to see which agents emerge, and
yeah,
they're giving them names. I think you've seen some people are like meet so and so, meet Wendy or meet
right.
Steven or meet whatever. These like the companies. Didn't Wells Fargo have one called Fargo?
Right.
I was like, "It sounds like a dog." Like, I would name a dog Fargo. I don't know why I thought of that, but, I would never, never, ever, ever trust my financial information to an AI bot on my phone. Sorry. I'm just
I
not gonna
know.
do it.
Right.
People do. People do. People like it, but
Of
I'm
course.
just not one of them. I'm worried about data breaches too much.
Me too. Yes. I mean, we can have a whole other session on that again, I think, to deep dive into the privacy concerns of, creating these like virtual projections of our alter self or of particular AI agents. Like, how do you preserve privacy in those scenarios? I think they're
Yeah.
trying to resolve it by saying it's going to be on the phone, right? Like it'll be on the iPhone, or with Google, of course, it'll be on the Pixel, which is why they're, I think, really doubling down on that. And um, hopefully that will resolve some of it. Here's an interesting one. Another startup that came out of the Llama Lounge is one called A Motions. And it's basically an AI agent that's a coach for you, sort of targeted at the HR department to help folks get up to speed, sort of learning and development. Or it could be like in sales, it could be a role play coach for you,
Mhm. Yep.
right? And so I think that's kind of cool. And so again, in the enterprise environment, you don't necessarily need to worry about your personal data, or do you? But that customer data that may come in there, certainly has to be preserved. And now, I don't know if you've seen a lot of the Salesforce commercials coming out and saying, don't work with bad guy AI, because they're saying, of course, they don't share their data. There's just so many ramifications at the consumer and at the enterprise level that, privacy protection is all about, but then so many good use cases out there. I mean, what are your thoughts?
Yeah. I don't know. I saw this article. I wish I had it readily available. I could say who wrote it, but they're saying something to the effect of like, stop giving all the data to the LLM because you're just like giving it every idea you could ever have. And you're just trying things out and you're feeding the machine and you're making it smarter and smarter. And it'll never get to where it's like, fully sentient if you don't keep sharing your information, and you're going to be put out of jobs. You're creative and all that other stuff. You're just essentially, you're letting the AI steal from you. And I
Right.
just don't know. I will say when this first started, I was like all day, every day using ChatGPT. When the custom GPTs came out, I went crazy on that. I started making tons of them. I started looking at libraries where you could sell them, you could monetize it, and I have dialed it back. And I don't have a paid account anymore, but I do use certain features. They're not necessarily agent level features, but I still do creative image generation for like the podcast episode cover arts and stuff like that, because
Right.
I'm not an artist and I can't draw to do that kind of stuff. And
Right.
then just simple things like, hey, how did I write this code? Like little things, I'll do
Yeah.
that, but nothing of any meaningful value yet. But it doesn't mean it won't be there. It's just I think I'm just kind of cautiously stepping back and waiting to see where the real things are, and then I'm getting under the hood a little bit into the knowledge layer and trying to understand how you actually can turn the text strings into knowledge, not just blurbs of information, but semantic knowledge. And I
Yes.
actually posted this funny thing today. Somebody said something like, "Oh, I've been working on knowledge graphs my whole career and I got a PhD and like now I'm trying to do this." And I was thinking that's the exact problem I'm trying to solve. And I was naively thinking I could just like noodle on it over the weekends when I'm in my free time. And I'm like, "Oh, I'm just going to like open up my graph database and just like poof, figure out
Right.
how to completely extract knowledge out of text." And good luck.
Yeah.
It's not actually as easy. But that's the problem that I want to solve, and maybe we'll do a podcast about that in the future. Maybe we can get one of these knowledge graph experts on. That would be
Yes.
fantastic for a future podcast.
Absolutely. I love it. I have so many thoughts. It's just it's great to continue to have the conversation and to, really just put it out there and think about it so that it's not developed without our input.
Yeah. And as we're sort of closing up, I just want to say there's been a few people that have reached out to me to tell me that they listen to the podcast.
Yay.
And I don't really at this point have any reporting metrics to know if we're just screaming into the abyss or if people actually listen. So hearing that people do is awesome. But I will
Yeah,
also say, like, engage on LinkedIn. Tell me what you think. Do you have
please.
agents that you like? Do you have other topics that you think we should cover? Would you like to be a guest? Engage with us so that we know how, if you are, the few that are our audience, how we can make this worth your time. Because right now we're both just passionate people talking about things that we find interesting, but we would also like to consider what you would like to hear about. So
You bet. Please.
yeah. Well, any closing remarks?
No closing remarks. Just, happy Friday. Continue to enjoy the summer, and we'll see where this wave of innovation continues to take us.
So I just thought of one. I wasn't gonna have any, but I just thought of one. So I think it was last weekend, I was trying to cook something for my family and I could not remember the recipe, but I knew the ingredients that were in it, but I didn't remember the ratios and I didn't remember exactly like the order. So I tried to find it by just searching, and because it's been a few years since I had made this thing, the search algorithms were all different. I just like, how many pages of recipes can I look at to be able to try to I thought coffee cakes were simple, but they're not. Apparently you can add cream cheese and all sorts of different things.
Yes.
So I used ChatGPT. I put in the ingredients and said, this is what I want to make and this is what it's made with. And it came back with ratios enough that I was able to kind of compare it to a couple other recipes and make it.
Love
And it
that.
came out amazing. So that's a really good use case. It's not an assistant necessarily, but when you're looking for guidance on things like that. How many
Well,
eggs? One, two. How many cups of flour? One, two, three.
right, right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Or
it gets
or
into search.
modifying. Hey, this recipe is a 9 by 9, but I need a 13 by 9. I want to make it a little bit bigger. Like, how do I do that without messing
Yeah.
up the
Well, now
the
you can ask that
consistency?
conversationally, right? And I mean, I think at that point we could definitely have another one on AI search, because that's what's really, starting to be disrupted. You made me think of another example where Andres and I were driving and we saw all these different icons on ways that we'd never seen before. And so we're like, oh, let's take a picture and put it in Chat GPT and see if it can tell us what it stands for.
Ooh,
And
that's
and
cool.
it, and it absolutely did. And beyond anything that, I mean, like, it was a very comprehensive analysis. It wasn't
Huh.
just like, here, this equals, this smiley face equals this. It was like an analysis of the gamification underlying it, which ones were performing better already. Like, I hadn't even prompted it that way, but it just, we of course love the fact that you could use the photo for search, which I don't think is totally novel at this point, but that analysis component that it seemed to provide us was what was so
Yes.
interesting.
The
So
depth.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
well, I'm gonna have to wrap up. I'm looking at my battery and it's saying the battery is running down. But it was great to talk to you. We'll have another one soon. I'll publish this maybe next week. And
awesome.
thanks for joining us on this 10th episode of Butterfly Bytes.
Butterfly bites. Thanks, Damie. Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone.